Evan Miller didn't believe in God. Not quietly, not passively. He was vocal about it. Debates, articles, public lectures. Evan didn't just doubt faith, he challenged it. He called religion a psychological crutch, a relic for weak minds, an excuse to avoid responsibility. And people listened. He was articulate, confident, sharp, a professor of philosophy with a growing online following. When Evan spoke about God, it wasn't anger. It was certainty. He believed in logic, in evidence, in control, and his life reflected that belief. Career advancing, reputation growing, a sense of superiority he never admitted out loud. Faith in his mind belonged to people who couldn't handle chaos. Evan handled chaos just fine, or so he thought. The first crack appeared quietly, a persistent pain behind his eyes. Nothing dramatic, just pressure. Doctors blamed stress, workload, screens. Evan accepted that explanation. It fit his worldview. Then the blackouts started. Brief moments, seconds at first, time slipping away without warning. He woke once on his office floor, confused, embarrassed, furious. Tests followed. Scans, specialists, silence, until one neurologist finally said the words Evan didn't expect. "We need to run more tests. This isn't stress." Evan laughed it off publicly, joked about mortality, posted sarcastic comments online. But alone at night, the certainty began to crack. Control was slipping, and no amount of logic could stop it. One evening, after a lecture dismantling the concept of God, Evan sat alone in his car, hands shaking, heart racing. A thought crossed his mind, unwelcome and terrifying. What if I'm wrong? He pushed it away immediately. But it came back, louder. And for the first time in his life, Evan realized something deeply unsettling. He could explain everything, except the fear he couldn't reason away. And that fear was about to force him into a confrontation he had spent his entire life avoiding. The blackouts grew worse. At first, Evan thought they were a fluke, a bad night, a product of overwork. But they kept coming back. Sudden moments of blankness, eyes wide open. But everything was empty. He'd find himself standing in the middle of his office, unable to recall how he got there. Or sitting on the subway, staring at the same spot for minutes without realizing it. It was terrifying. Not the blackouts, but the uncertainty. His mind, once so sharp, now felt like a stranger. The neurologist's words echoed in his head. "We need more tests." The final diagnosis came in a sterile, quiet room. Evan sat across from the doctor, trying to mask his panic with sarcasm. "So, what's the verdict? Am I dying? Should I call my mom?" He joked, voice tight. The doctor didn't laugh. "No, it's not death," she said, not unkindly. "But it's serious. You've got a condition called neurodegenerative disorder." Evan sat frozen. "Meaning what?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Your brain is slowly deteriorating," she replied. "It's affecting your memory, motor skills, and reasoning." Evan's world tilted. "You're telling me I'm losing my mind?" he asked, the words sounding alien even as they left his mouth. The doctor nodded. "You'll have periods of clarity, but they will become less frequent. It's progressive, and it's not reversible." Evan didn't hear the rest of the conversation. His thoughts were racing, his chest tightening. For the first time in his life, he had no control, no explanation. It hit him hardest at night. The quiet. No lectures. No debates. No answers to questions he'd spent his whole life asking. The isolation wasn't just physical. It was mental. It was existential. He sat in his apartment, staring at the wall. The bookshelves, once filled with texts that made him feel powerful, now felt like a burden. All those theories, all those arguments, all those dismissals of faith and religion, what was it all worth now? The panic attacks started after that. They didn't come often at first, but when they did, they were crushing. His heart raced uncontrollably. His chest tightened. His body felt like it was collapsing under invisible weight. And the worst part? He didn't know why. One night, alone in his apartment, with his hands shaking, Evan reached for his phone. His fingers hovered over the screen for a long time before he typed, "Jesus, are you there?" He laughed at himself immediately after. The words felt ridiculous, but something in him needed to ask. He'd spent his whole life mocking the idea of God, but in that moment, the mocking felt empty. His logical mind rebelled, but his heart was asking something else, something deeper. He didn't expect an answer. He didn't expect anything. But as he sat there, staring at the screen, something shifted. A thought popped into his head, unexpected and frightening. What if you're wrong? The thought was followed by another. What if everything you've believed is a lie? Evan slammed the phone down on the table. He wasn't going to do this. He couldn't. The next day, he went to work. He tried to get back to his routine, but it was impossible. The headaches were constant. The blackouts were longer. He couldn't focus on his lectures. His lectures couldn't even hold his attention anymore. He wanted to escape, to run. That night, he sat alone again, phone in hand. This time, he didn't stop himself. He typed, "Jesus, if you're real, show me." The words were a challenge, a test, a desperate plea wrapped in defiance. He stared at the screen, waiting for a response. For anything. A voice. A sign. A miracle. But nothing came. He laughed bitterly, feeling foolish. He put the phone down. "I don't need this," he said aloud. But even as he said it, something inside him felt different. He didn't want an answer. He didn't want God to show up. But deep down, he knew he didn't have the strength to fight this alone anymore. The disease, the fear, the regret. He couldn't reason his way out of this one. And that terrified him more than anything else. That night, as the city outside remained indifferent to his struggle, Evan laid in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The fight had always been about logic, about proving he was right, about proving everyone else was wrong. Now, the battle wasn't with his intellect. It was with himself. And the most terrifying question of all was, what if Jesus really was the answer? Evan stopped sleeping, not because of pain, because his thoughts wouldn't let him rest. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind replayed conversations from the past, debates where he laughed at faith, lectures where he dismantled belief with confidence, articles where he dismissed God as a coping mechanism for weak people. At the time, it felt powerful. Now it felt reckless. He had built his identity on certainty, and certainty was gone. The diagnosis followed him everywhere. In the mirror, in his lectures, in the way people now looked at him. Colleagues spoke more slowly around him. Students asked if he was okay. Evan hated that word. Okay implied weakness, and weakness was unacceptable. One afternoon, during a lecture, his vision blurred. Mid-sentence, the room tilted. Voices faded. He gripped the podium, knuckles white, forcing himself to finish. When it was over, he locked himself in his office and sat on the floor, back against the door, breathing shallow, hands shaking. "This isn't happening," he whispered. But it was. He canceled public debates, then conferences, then classes. Excuses piled up. So did the silence. Evan, who once filled rooms with words, now avoided conversations entirely. Silence was safer. Silence didn't ask questions. One evening, he found himself staring at a bookshelf he hadn't touched in years. Old philosophy texts, margins filled with confident notes. He pulled one down at random and flipped through it. Arguments about meaning, purpose, truth. None of it helped. For the first time, knowledge felt insufficient. The fear grew heavier at night. Not fear of death, fear of nothing, of losing his mind before losing his life, of becoming a burden, of disappearing while still breathing. That thought terrified him more than hell ever had. One night, in a moment of frustration, Evan opened his laptop and searched something he never thought he would. Why do people believe in Jesus? He scoffed at himself immediately, but he kept reading. Not sermons, not theology, stories. People who said they were changed. People who claimed peace in the middle of suffering. Evan closed the laptop. Anecdotes, he muttered. But the stories lingered. Days later, Evan collapsed in public. Not dramatically, quietly. A blackout on a sidewalk. When he woke up, a stranger was kneeling beside him. "You okay, man?" the stranger asked. Evan nodded, embarrassed. As the man helped him up, he noticed something unexpected. A small cross around the man's neck. The sight triggered something irrational inside Evan. Anger. "Don't," Evan snapped. The man raised his hands calmly. "Hey, I didn't say anything." Evan realized how harsh he sounded. "Sorry," he muttered. "Bad day." The man studied him gently. Looks like more than a bad day. Evan almost laughed. Almost. That night, alone again, Evan sat on the edge of his bed. His body felt fragile, unreliable. He whispered words he had avoided his entire life. God, if you exist, why this? The question wasn't philosophical. It was raw. No answer came. But Evan didn't feel mocked by the silence. He felt exposed. He began to realize something unsettling. His hatred of God wasn't rooted in logic. It was rooted in fear. If God existed, then Evan wasn't in control. And control had been his religion. Another blackout followed days later. Longer this time. When he woke up, he couldn't remember his address. Panic set in fast. He sat on the floor, head in his hands, whispering the same sentence over and over. I don't want to disappear. The words cracked his voice. For the first time, Evan cried. Not out of frustration, out of grief. Grief for a life built on certainty that couldn't save him. He whispered again, barely audible, Jesus. I don't know how to believe. The word Jesus felt strange on his tongue, unfamiliar, dangerous, but honest. And something inside him shifted. Not relief, not peace, but surrender. The realization that he didn't have to win this argument. That maybe this wasn't about being right. It was about being saved. Evan sat there in silence, tears drying on his face. For the first time in his life, he wasn't trying to prove anything. He was listening, and that terrified him. Because if Jesus was real, then everything Evan had built his identity on was about to be redefined. Evan didn't become a believer overnight. There was no dramatic conversion, no sudden certainty. What happened was slower, more uncomfortable. He stopped arguing. That was the first change. He stopped watching debates. Stopped writing responses to critics. Stopped trying to prove anything. The silence he once feared became necessary. He spent hours sitting alone, staring out the window, listening to the city move on without him. The world didn't pause for his crisis. That bothered him. One afternoon, Evan walked into a bookstore. Not intentionally. He had been wandering aimlessly, trying to quiet his thoughts. He stood in front of a shelf he had avoided his entire adult life. Religion, Christianity, Jesus. He smirked to himself. Ironic, he muttered. But he reached out anyway. Not for a theology book. Not for apologetic, for a simple Bible. He held it in his hands for a long moment, then bought it, without telling himself why. At home, he opened it awkwardly, unsure where to begin. He flipped pages randomly. Psalms, Proverbs, poetry, emotion. That surprised him. He expected rules. He found honesty, anger, fear, doubt, people questioning God openly. Evan paused. That's allowed, he whispered. He kept reading, not because he was convinced, because he felt understood. Verses about weakness, about fragile minds, about fear. One line stopped him completely. "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Weakness, the word he had spent his life avoiding. Evan closed the book. His chest tightened. "That's not how the world works," he said aloud. But deep down he knew. It was how his world worked now. The next blackout came days later. He woke up on his apartment floor, disoriented, panicked. He tried to stand and nearly collapsed again. For the first time, Evan didn't curse, didn't panic. He lay there and stared at the ceiling. "If you're there," he whispered, "I can't fight this alone." The words surprised him. They weren't a challenge. They weren't a test. They were a surrender. Evan began to pray. Not formally, not confidently. Short, awkward sentences. "I'm scared. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if I trust you." He expected silence. Instead, he felt something unfamiliar. Not happiness. Not certainty. Peace. Subtle. Quiet. Unexplainable. It didn't remove the diagnosis. It didn't heal his brain. But it grounded him. He noticed changes. Small ones. His panic attacks lessened. His breathing steadied. The constant mental noise softened. The fear was still there, but it no longer ruled him. One evening, Evan sat at his desk, Bible open, notes scattered around. He laughed softly. "I used to think faith was weakness," he said aloud. He paused. Turns out pride was. That realization hit deeper than any argument he had ever lost. The following Sunday, Evan walked into a church. He sat in the back, hands shaking, ready to leave at any moment. The pastor spoke simply about surrender, about control, about how Jesus didn't come to win debates. He came to save people. Evan swallowed hard. That sentence felt personal. When the service ended, Evan didn't rush out. He stayed seated, head bowed, heart racing. "I don't know how this works," he whispered. "I don't even know if I believe everything yet." He took a breath. "But if you're real, I'm done fighting you." The words felt heavier than anything he had ever said. And lighter. Evan didn't feel reborn. He felt honest. And that was new. As he walked home, city noise surrounding him, Evan realized something profound. His intellect hadn't failed him. It had simply reached its limit. And beyond that limit was grace. Not earned. Not proven. Given. He didn't know where this journey would lead. But for the first time in his life, Evan wasn't trying to control the outcome. He was trusting someone else with it. And that changed everything. Faith didn't make Evan's condition disappear. That was the first hard lesson. The blackouts continued. The memory lapses didn't stop. The diagnosis didn't change. Jesus hadn't come to erase reality. He had come to walk with Evan through it. And that distinction mattered more than Evan expected. The neurologist was honest. "You should prepare for progression," she said carefully. There will be days when clarity comes, others when it doesn't. Evan nodded. For the first time, he didn't argue. He didn't demand explanations. He asked one question instead. What should I do while I still can? The doctor paused. Live intentionally, she replied. That answer stayed with him. Evan resigned from the university. Not in shame, in peace. Standing at the podium one last time, he looked out at the room where he had built his reputation. I won't be returning next semester, he said calmly. Not because I lack answers, but because I've learned there are limits to what answers can do. The room was silent. Some students looked confused, others emotional. Evan didn't explain further. He didn't need to. At home, the quiet was different now. Still heavy, still uncertain, but no longer empty. Evan prayed daily, not for healing, for presence. Jesus, help me be here today. Help me notice what matters. Help me not waste what's left. Those prayers shaped his days. The online world noticed his absence. Speculation followed. Some mocked him. Others accused him of running. One former colleague messaged him directly. So, you finally found religion? Evan stared at the screen for a long time before replying. No, he typed. I finally found honesty. He didn't send anything else. One afternoon, Evan forgot his way home. He stood on a familiar street, heart pounding, unable to place himself. Fear surged. Then he remembered something Mark had once said in a book he'd read. You don't lose God when you lose yourself. Evan closed his eyes. Jesus, I'm here. I'm scared. Don't leave me. The panic eased. Not instantly, but enough. He asked a stranger for help and got home. That night Evan cried, not because he was afraid of dying, because he was learning how to live without control, and control had been his God. Evan began attending church regularly, not to lead, not to teach, to sit, to listen, to be known without impressing anyone. People didn't care about his credentials. They cared about him. That unsettled him at first, then healed him. One Sunday after service, a man approached him. I used to watch your debates, the man said quietly. They helped me feel smarter. Evan smiled faintly. And now? The man hesitated. And now I'm tired. Evan nodded. So was I. They sat together for a long time. No arguments. No conclusions. Just two men admitting they didn't have control. That night, Evan wrote in a notebook. Not theories. Not arguments. Prayers. If I lose my words, stay. If I lose my mind, stay. If I lose everything, stay. He paused, pen trembling. You are enough. The sentence didn't feel poetic. It felt necessary. Evan's life grew smaller. Fewer commitments. Fewer distractions. But deeper. Richer. More real. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, He understood something he had mocked his entire life. Faith wasn't an escape from reality. It was the courage to face it without pretending you were in control. And that courage was changing him from the inside out. Evan didn't become a symbol of healing. He became a witness of peace. And that was harder. The disease progressed. Slowly, unpredictably. Some mornings Evan woke up clear, articulate, almost like his old self. Other days, he struggled to finish sentences, to remember names, to hold on to thoughts. He learned to stop fighting those moments. Fighting only exhausted what little strength he had left. Acceptance didn't mean giving up. It meant trusting differently. Evan sold most of his books, not out of bitterness, but because he no longer needed them as armor. The shelves that once defined him were replaced by a quiet space near the window. A chair, a Bible, a notebook filled with prayers. Simple, honest. Friends came and went. Some couldn't handle the change. Others stayed longer than expected. Evan stopped explaining himself. He had learned something important. Not everyone needs your story to make sense. They just need to see that it's real. One afternoon, Evan was invited to speak at a small gathering. Not a debate, not a lecture, just a conversation. He stood slowly, hands slightly shaking, and looked at the room. "I used to believe faith was a way to avoid reality," he said. "I was wrong." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "Faith didn't give me answers. It gave me presence. And presence saved me." The room was silent. No applause. Just understanding. As months passed, Evan began forgetting things more often. Dates, words, faces. But something strange happened. Even as memory faded, peace remained. When fear rose, it didn't overwhelm him anymore. When confusion came, it didn't define him. Jesus had become more than an idea. He was a companion. One evening, Evan sat with a pastor after service. "I used to think surrender meant losing," Evan said softly. The pastor smiled. And now I know it means being held," Evan replied. Near the end, Evan moved into a small assisted living home. Nothing dramatic. Just help when he needed it. One night, a nurse found him sitting by the window, whispering softly. "Talking to someone?" she asked gently. Evan smiled. "Always." On his last clear day, Evan wrote one final sentence in his notebook. Not an argument. Not a conclusion. A confession. "I was wrong about God." And he still stayed. Evan passed quietly. No crowd. No headlines. But the ripples of his life remained. A former student who found faith after losing certainty. A skeptic who stopped mocking and started listening. A man who learned that truth isn't always something you conquer. Sometimes, it's someone who carries you. Evan spent his life trying to prove God didn't exist. In the end, he discovered something far more humbling. God didn't need Evan to believe in him to exist. But Evan needed Jesus to truly live. And that truth, quiet, unprovable, and deeply personal, changed everything.